It's official. Fewest interceptions in a quarterback's first 1,000 career pass attempts. He's the greatest ever. By the way, he is second behind Aaron Rodgers all time in highest passing touchdown to interception ratio since the merger. All that torque and horsepower, not a lot of mistakes. And I wish he completed more than 58.5% of his throws. I do think that's a little low. But there are three quarterbacks in this league, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Caleb Williams. I can't lose that much sleep on it. I'll give you an example. Let's say you had a child, 7, 8 years old, that had been tested, and you had what they call a gifted child. Top 1 of 1%. Was playing Beethoven at 8 years old. You're really going to lose sleep that 3-4 times a week he puts his pajamas on backwards? You got Beethoven down the hall. Get over it. Not every kid ages, grows the same way. Not every quarterback's the same. Okay, I'm not losing a ton of sleep. I think 61% is probably where you're going to go. But everybody's talking about how accurate Josh Allen is this year. That's because he throws the tight ends. He never throws the ball down the field. Aaron Judge, one season, led baseball in strikeouts. I'm okay with it. Brett Favre, most interceptions ever. Kobe, second most missed field goals in league history. Shaq, a 52% career free throw shooter. Michael Dell, the late Paul Allen, Bill Gates, all dropped out of college. Not everybody in society is playing by the same rules. Aaron Rodgers had pretty good O-lines in Green Bay consistently. He's the most sacked quarterback in league history. Held the ball a little longer because he wanted to try something spectacular. So Caleb Williams, the horsepower, the torque, he's making about 2 throws, 3 throws every Sunday. They look like optical illusions. Like next-gen stats is like, oh, that had 16% chance of being completed. And it was. So, again, if your kid is doing Beethoven at 8, all right, he wets the bed more than you're happy with. Okay, whatever.
Okay. I may literally have to start taking a break from making Herd Bears clips because I can't keep taking the lecturing when Colin was literally just ripping Caleb, and I know he's changed his tune, but it's the lecturing, and then now we're saying that Josh Allen doesn't push the ball down the field. Of course he does. What are we talking about right now? Josh Allen doesn't push the ball down the field. Like what? And snorts. Josh Allen doesn't throws less interceptions now because of decision making and because he got more accurate. He changed his mechanics. They literally showed us on Sunday Night Football and showed J.J. McCarthy's poor mechanics. Showed what Josh Allen had when he first entered the NFL and compared it to how Josh Allen throws now. Collinsworth literally dumbed it down for everyone. Okay, for everyone. He made it as, so you don't have to have any understanding about mechanics. You don't have to have played a single sport, thrown a single ball, have any idea what it's like to work with a coach when they were like, no, you got to do this. You got to keep your arms, move with your hips, this, that. You don't have to have any of that. It was so slowed down and dumbed down for everyone. That's why Josh Allen has gotten more accurate. Okay, so we need to stop here. We need to stop here. I think it's awesome what Caleb Williams is doing. I really do. Fewest interceptions through first 10,000 passes. That's all great. Which is also, though, kind of weird because Colin kept saying that, like, when you throw 2 little interceptions, it's actually a bad thing, and he criticized Aaron for that. Like, so, it's just, things are just all over the place right now. They really, really are. But this is what I actually find most interesting about the Chicago Bears. If we look at their odds right now, the Chicago Bears have the 12th best odds, the 12 best, chance percent to win the conference championship. They're at 6%. Okay, 6%. Who's above them? The Chargers at 8%. Now, again, this is factoring in who you're going to have to play, potentially, competition, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think the Bears are probably going to take a bigger hit because of having to play a team like the Rams, who the Rams have a 34% chance to win the division, right? The Broncos 31, the Seahawks 20, Buffalo 17, Texans 16, Green Bay 15. I'm sure that'll continue to kind of get factored in with like some of the injuries and whatnot with Green Bay. The Eagles at 9%, 49ers 9%, like it's, and yet here they are at 6%. And then to win the Super Bowl, it's the same. They're still at 12. They're tied with the Ravens though, 3%. And above them, the Chargers, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Patriots, the Jags, etc. And I think a big factor in this is you look at the strength of schedule. And when you look at these teams and what they're able to do, you look at a team like the Bears and you're like, well, they have the 21st ranked schedule, hardest schedule. So, so technically easy in the eyes of this. And you got the Ravens 27th, the Chargers 25th, but then the Eagles are like, oh, they're at 7th. You're like, oh, okay. Maybe making a little bit more sense why their record is what they are. Again, yes or no, doesn't matter. But then you have the 49ers 30th ranked, the Patriots 32nd ranked. Those are too easy. But again, they're only at 4% to win the Super Bowl. Literally just 1% higher than that of the Bears. The Jags 23rd, the Packers 11th, the Texans 8th, the Bills 24th, 26th, 19th, 13th, and on we go. And I think it's actually brought down because of the perception of Caleb Williams. And, you can see Bo Nix is above Goff, Hurts, Trevor, Justin Herbert, Sam Darnold, Drake May, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Jordan Love, Matthew Stafford. And it's interesting because Stafford obviously is an outlier here, but when we look at touchdowns, we can see we just organize it through touchdowns. Caleb has 21. And we kind of have to toss Mahomes out, obviously, unfortunately, for him not in the playoffs. But we could see Caleb is at 21 touchdowns. Baker 22, Jalen 22, Sam 22, Aaron 22, 23, Bo 23, 23, 23, 23. Like the heart of it, for the most part, I'm not going to say that Jared Goff is necessarily a full-on outlier. But he's more up there with Matthew Stafford, that if this was like a bell-shaped curve, Stafford and Goff would be off to the side, and the bulk would be this, kind of this Josh Allen would just be slightly touching, but it would be, from Josh Allen down to Caleb. We'll just cut Tua out because Tua is his own outlier with 20. He would be on in the front of the curve, there, and then the bell then. So this is where the bulk is, from, Caleb up to, Dak Prescott or so. And it is interesting because he's got the 21 touchdowns, but only the 6 interceptions. And, Baker's got 7, but, which I'll address in a moment. Jalen only 6, which is good. But then Sam Darnold 11, Aaron Rodgers 7, good. But B. Nix 9, getting up there. Trevor 11, obviously up there. Justin Herbert 12, obviously getting up there. But then you got Jordan Love, Drake May, at 6, 7. So again, all kind of within this range of 22, 23, 21 touchdowns, 67, 8-ish interceptions, right? So all kind of comparable. But this is where things continue to get interesting for me because Caleb has 15 turnover-worthy plays. Baker 23, 8 more turnover-worthy plays, and yet not suffering those consequences of those interceptions. Jalen Hurts only 9, Bo Nix 18, Justin Herbert 12. Like Justin Herbert, he's in the situation where he's suffered the most. It's like anytime he has a turnover-worthy play, they just take it. Like he doesn't get any benefit of any of like these, drop turnovers or, dropped interceptions, etc. Dre May 14, Jordan Love 14, Josh Allen 11, Dak 18, Jared Goff 8, shout out to him, and Matthew Stafford at 13. And it's interesting because the percentages of percent of turnover-worthy play, which is probably technically more accurate because if you're throwing the ball 100 times a game, every single game, you're going to have more turnover-worthy plays than someone who only throws the ball 5 times a game. But Jared Goff at 1.6, Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to be the next best one. Yeah. At 1.8, and then Caleb Williams 2.7. So, again, within the range of of taking care of the ball quite well, a little bit higher than Justin Herbert. And that's why it is interesting, because Justin Herbert's got more interceptions, but you can make the argument that he's actually taking care of the ball better. He's just suffering the consequences more, you know. Which I do think the math does math in that type of situation, honestly. But it's all still within a good productive range. Again, to put it in perspective, you have Tua, who's not taking care of the ball 5.4%. Okay? Like that's and you have Baker Mayfield, who's now been very fortunate to have a lot of these turnover-worthy plays, 4.1%, you know, and he's just been fortunate that they're dropping them. And here's the thing about the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams. The Bears are in such an amazing situation because you're talking about entering the playoffs, bad weather, cold, snow, whatever. Even indoors, honestly, in a dome, there's nothing more calming and relaxing when you can hand the ball off and run the ball and feel like you can keep running. And you feel it as a fan. If you know the run game's not working very well, or you just can't get it going, and your quarterback has to drop back, like, you know, you're maybe not as nervous in the first quarter, the second quarter. Once you start to hit that third quarter, that fourth quarter, every time your quarterback hits his back foot and lets it rip, there's a part of you that's like, oh gosh, please don't be an intercept. Like, please be an open receiver. Please be wide open. And you're like, you start to get anxious. You're like, oh my God, it's 21-17. You know, like, we need a touchdown here. Like, you start to feel it. You feel it. You feel it. You feel it. There's just nothing more common when you can just keep handing the ball off. I always watch if I'm watching a game with my dad and a team is able to, you know, hand the ball off and keep getting positive. My dad's always like, just keep doing that. Just keep handing the ball off. Just keep handing the ball off. Then you even hear the broadcast say, you know, hey, they've been having a heck of a day running the ball. You know, then they're sticking with it. You know, why do anything else if you're going to keep getting 4 or 5 yards? And so that is single-handedly the best advantage that Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears have to work with over any of these other quarterbacks, even more so than Josh Allen, and who has a great run game with Cook, no doubt about it. But Josh Allen still has to take on a massive burden of that run game, especially when you're looking at it from like a success rate in terms of like the percentage of what percent of yards are you getting on first down, second down, third down that Cook is actually. He's nowhere close to that of what Josh Allen is getting of. Josh Allen, what both running backs for the Rams are getting, etc. And stick with me, because this is where it continues to get interesting, especially when you look at it from a run game, you know, a run game in the playoffs. But we're going to have to just put that to the side for just one quick second. Because when you look at now the points for what the quarterback offers, the point spread, you have Caleb Williams contributing 2.5, Lamar Jackson 7, Justin Herbert 6, Hurts 4, Puri 3.5, like Drake May 5.5, Trevor Lawrence 3.5, Jordan Love 4.5, CJ Stroud 3.5, Josh Allen 7, Sam Darr 3.5, Bond Nix 2, Matthew Stafford 5. And so you can see this isn't the best way to look at it, but it's a way that you can look at it through. It's like, that's that individual quarterback, like that is what is being measured in terms of, in a way, like how important are you to the offense to make that going, what you are contributing, how important you are, you know, you're directly causing your team to score, you know that. And it's not to say that you're obviously being the quarterback, you're always going to contribute to a large degree, but we can see like someone like Josh Allen, who again has to make crazy throws, has to be a big part of the run game, etc., you know, more so than say a CJ Stroud at 3.5 or Perry 3.5, even if maybe some of these offenses are more high-hourred or something. And so we can see that the Bears are obviously very successful right now, but it's seen that Caleb Williams is only 2.5. And a big part of that is because of a massive production in the run game that the Bears have been able to get and all of that, which is all a positive. All a positive. But this is why things to me continue to get more interesting, because especially if you're in an ugly cold weather game, the quarterbacks, in terms of the sheer volume. Now, in terms of the individual moments that you're going to need someone to rise to the occasion and step up, you know, that's always just going to be through the roof in the playoffs. But in terms of the sheer volume, like there is the argument that if Josh Allen and the Bills got to play indoors, that they would just be able they just would be able to light it up, right? That like a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, that you put these guys indoors and they'll just be able to light it up. And it's the same argument against like the Brock Parties, the Jared Goffs, etc. That when they're outside in the cold weather, in the brutal weather, windy, snowy, whatever, it's like their skill set gets reduced and minimized. And so even if we were to say that this is true, that Caleb Williams is only 2.5 and a Brock Purdy is 3.5 or something, which again, it doesn't really matter to me. If you're just factoring in though, going up against, you know, especially if you're at home field advantage, either the 2 seed or the 1 seed, depending on how all of this stuff unfolds here, you're in a position to minimize their advantage and become more neutralized. Now again, that does not factor in Matthew Stafford 3rd and long, who you want to throw the ball. You know, I want Stafford to throw like, you know, that, not that, but in terms of the sheer volume and in any given moment, in any given play, it just, things can get minimized. I'm very confident that Matthew Stafford would have a better passing game, you know, have a better performance if he's playing indoors than if he's in a snowstorm. So you're going to reduce, although some snowstorms really help great quarterbacks because the field is slippery, and that's a big advantage to the offense. Actually, as Tom Brady talked about, I love playing on slippery fields because he's like, I got an advantage. So it's like it's not always 100% cut and dry. But we do know that if you have an incredibly threatening run game, and even if you are now going up against the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford, if you can be home, which again, that's going to be kind of dependent on what happens with the Rams here, you minimize the chance of, hey, you know what? We need Caleb to drop back 45 times and win a shootout with Matthew Stafford. You reduce the likelihood of that being the case, and you reduce the likelihood of that being the case with Sam Darnold, with, you know, the Packers are different because they're cold weather as well. But, you know, we'll see what happens with the Packers as time goes on, you know, with Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts. And I'm only just sticking with the NFC teams, obviously, because any AFC team, you're going to be in a, you know, the weather's not going to be terrible. So it's just kind of interesting that out of all these teams, if you were to say, I have a question mark about my quarterback, which I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying based off these odds, based off of the conversations that are being had, based off of what, you know, Colin is trying to combat and bring forth in the playoffs, outside of those moments, those individual moments, do you make that throw in, you know, against the Green Bay Packers, or do you throw an interception? Like, take that out, because a lot of times those moments either work in your favor, they don't. It doesn't feel like a coin flip, but a lot of times it is. It's like, ah, darn, that wasn't a catch. And instead it got tipped, and now it's intercepted. Now the game is over. But in terms of the sheer volume of what you're asking your quarterback to do, every minute of that game, a lot of this stuff gets neutralized. And we're already seeing instances of that, I feel like, around the league right now, just on how just how the weather's been unfolding for a lot of these games. And again, it doesn't erase it, but I should neutralize is probably not the right word. Maybe equalize would maybe be a better word, but I don't know. They can kind of mean the same thing in this context. So I just do find it interesting, because it does feel to me that if Caleb Williams was getting more weight in terms of this offense and what he's been able to do, it's not hard to imagine that they would be significantly elevated, because really right now the two outliers are Caleb Williams and Bo Nix. And it's seen that Bo Nix has the better defense, better O-line, you know, et cetera, et cetera. They also have the number 1 seed, first round bye. That's going to significantly increase their odds. You know, their odds right now clinching the playoffs, 99.9%, which is, you know, you clinched it. Whereas the Bears are not. They're still at 77. And so all of that still has to be factored in as well. Their seeding, not getting a bye. But if they got a bye, I would be fascinated to see if they were able to lock in the 1 seed. What that would mean, you know, like what that would do with their odds if they would be closer with Denver. So I don't know. I do find it interesting. I mean, when you look at Caleb Williams in terms of, you know, what he brings to an offense, he's essentially, in a three-way tie at 16th with Tua, Aaron Rodgers, and Caleb. Bo Nix is right behind him. And then below them is Cam Ward, rookie. Jackson Dart, rookie. Bryce Young, questionable starter. Jacoby Brissett, old, backup quarterback. Kirk Cousins, come back from an Achilles. Garnu, backup quarterback. Phillip Rivers, 44 years old. J.J. McCarthy, struggling. Kenny Pickett, backup quarterback. Tyler Shuck, rookie. Marcus Mariota, backup. Cook, backup. Sanders, rookie / maybe backup. And it's just like, you can see how things are just getting weighted down, and what the perception is of Caleb Williams. So yeah, I just wanted to look at it through a little bit different lens, rather than keep trying to debate completion percentages and mechanics and whatnot. And being triggered by Colin's lecturing about on some of the Caleb Williams stuff. But yeah, I do find the perception around Caleb really interesting, and just the way how all of this has unfolded from last year into this year into the Bears. It's like the Bears, they believe in the coach. They believe in the run game. They believe in the defense. They're in a spot to win the division, have great seeding, right? It's not like they're in this weird situation where like they're playing great now, but because of that, but they weren't earlier. And so now they're like a 7 seed. Like they're not in that situation. They're not in a weird situation where it was kind of like last year between the Minnesota Vikings and the Lions, where it's like you win this game, you're the 1 seed, you lose this game, you're in the 5-5 seed. Like the Bears are seemingly in the driver's seat right now. But then we can even see that the Packers are favored, even with the Michael Parsons injury and whatnot. And I guess in a lot of ways that will be another barometer game. Like the Bears are at home, the Packers are hobbled. You already played them and lost. So, it's just the whole split thing. It's tough to beat a team 2-3 times, blah, 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 division rivals. And it's like, if you come away with that win, does the perception still remain the same? And if you lose, or do you start to say, well, maybe the odds were right, or, I'm just fascinated. That's why it's like such a great game to like now bounce back and be like, all right, we're going to play the Packers again now, like, let's see what that looks like. Let's see how this thing continues to grow and evolve, because the 12 best odds to win the Super Bowl out of 14 playoff teams, and yet they're flirting with the 1 seed. And again, from my viewpoint, it all is because of Caleb Williams. That is the reason why it's seen that way. It's very rare that you're like, I believe in the coach. I believe in the O-line. I believe in the defense. I believe in this. And we're getting all these turnovers, and we're able to run the lights out of the ball. We're a top seed, but yet we're going to put you at the bottom. I find it interesting. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears? Do you think he'll lead them to a Super Bowl this year? How do you make sense of some of the stats and the numbers and the perception around the Bears in relation to Caleb Williams? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.